Out in the Caribbean, though, something of a different story. A strong tropical wave still being monitored very closely. There's a plane in this system right now checking it out. And again, there's no circulation center at the moment, but it's being watched closely. It's moving west at a very fast speed, 30 miles per hour. Here's a look at the latest satellite photograph. A real nice view of Elena over Cuba this afternoon, the northern coast of that country. It has still maintained its strength as it has moved west-northwestward throughout the day today. We're going to show you the latest information on Elena now, located 150 miles south of Key West, near 22.5 north, 81.5 west. The storm is moving towards the west-northwest at about 25 miles per hour, with the winds now at 50 miles per hour. Now, no one knows where Elena could be heading, but we're going to show you one idea of where Elena could be heading from the National Hurricane Center computer. By 1 o'clock tomorrow, by 1 o'clock on Friday, due south of Pensacola, and by 1 o'clock on Saturday. So, according to this preliminary estimation, it could affect the Mississippi-Alabama coastal region. But then again, this is just a preliminary estimation. Elena could end up anywhere along the Gulf Coast, so we'll have to keep an eye on it for you. Take a look at this photo we have of Elena, which became a hurricane at 8 o'clock this morning. It is a storm which is a minimal hurricane now, but very well could become a dangerous hurricane by the time it makes landfall somewhere over the central Gulf Coast. Midday tomorrow is the best estimate as the storm starts to slow down just a bit. Now, the latest information puts Elena 325 miles southeast of New Orleans. If you're tracking the storm, that's 26.5 north, 86.5 west. That movement is now northwest. Notice the slower speed, 10 to 15 miles per hour. Here's where it has been, but now it's starting to take a little bit more of a northerly turn. Highest winds up to 85 miles per hour with even higher gusts than that in some of the squalls. The warning information now, the warnings haven't changed since 8 o'clock this morning. Still a hurricane warning from Morgan City, Louisiana to Pensacola, Florida, and a hurricane watch as far east as Apalachicola, Florida. But that little northerly turn during the last few hours concerns the forecasters, and they may have to extend the area of hurricane warnings farther east tonight just to cover the possibility of it becoming a little bit more right of the track. Now, the latest computer information puts the storm just south of Mobile at 1 o'clock tomorrow. This is just what a computer thinks. And then 1 o'clock on Saturday, they've got the storm over western Alabama, perhaps around Tuscaloosa. That means it's going to drop a lot of rainfall over South Alabama. We got a satellite photograph to show you starting at 10 o'clock this morning, and we thought what we'd do is show you how the storm began to slow down during the day. By 2 o'clock, look at where the storm moves, not a whole lot. Watch the center now as we take you to 5 o'clock, the very latest view we have from the satellite. There's the center right in there with the spiral rain bands now affecting Montgomery. You see this upper one? It's been rumbling up above us here, and we've had our lights flicker. You maybe have your lights flicker. That's some of the outer rain bands which are now affecting the coast. Gale warnings in effect on the coast now. They could have gale force winds within the next couple of hours. Here's a photo of Elena this afternoon, a lady who's been acting very erratically during the last 6 hours. And again, she took quite a turn towards the east-northeast this afternoon, and that lessens the threat to Alabama. Great news for Alabama. Not so good news for the northern portions of Florida. Let's bring you up to date. Here's the latest information on Elena. The center now at 28.5 north, 86.5 west. That puts the center 125 miles to the southwest of Apalachicola, this little point of land right here. And it's moving towards, they're calling it northeast at 5, but actually the direction is a little bit more east-northeast at 5. The winds up to 100 miles per hour. That has stayed steady over the last 6 hours. The warnings have been discontinued now along the Alabama coast. We're going to show you the areas of warnings from Pensacola, Florida, a hurricane warning, all the way to Tarpon Springs in Florida. Tarpon Springs just north of the Tampa area. Now, the computers are still moving the storm very slowly because the upper level currents are weak and erratic. And by Sunday midday, look where they put this storm. I mean, this is, we're talking 36 hours from now. They've got it near Cedar Keys, Florida. So Elena still could do just about anything, but the steering currents are suggesting this move towards the North Florida area. We have 3 satellite photographs to show you. First, starting at late this morning, you can see this area of, the center's right here. Now watch as we show you the next satellite photograph. You see the northeast movement, and then we take you later in the day. You can still perceive this northeast movement, so that's a definite track. Now, we also have a radar picture from Apalachicola to show you. Here's the radar site right here. The eye is now well southwest of Apalachicola. Now watch as we take you into the afternoon. Again, you see that northeastward movement.
Hurricane force winds are gusting all along the warning area even now, and the surge is beginning. The sea is swelling, and flooding is beginning to be a problem. High tides expected, of course. And now the coordinates for the hurricane you see on the screen. I said Cedar Creek, Florida. It should be Cedar Key. I said Cedar Creek at 6. About 50 miles to the west-southwest of Cedar Key. It is stationary now. Wind still at 100 miles per hour. That at about noon today, Hurricane Elena changed her mind, decided to stop going northeast and start going northwest, and that's when the hurricane warnings had to be shifted. Here are the warning areas for Hurricane Elena. They shifted from the west coast of Florida all the way up to the northern Gulf Coast, and they now extend from Yankeetown, Florida, a town nobody heard of till today, all the way over to Grand Isle, Louisiana. That includes all cities in between and New Orleans. Predicted landfall indicated by the X. X marks the spot where they're saying if it keeps up this path, that is where landfall will occur sometime tomorrow morning.
Here is a radar view of what happened to Elena this morning. We're going to start at 1 o'clock this morning and show you that storm going ashore. Elena, a major hurricane, Category 3. The last Category 3 storm to affect Alabama was Frederick in 1979. Again, from 1 a.m., the storm starts here and moves over Dauphin Island by 6 o'clock in the morning, right there, hits Pascagoula, moves over to Biloxi, Gulfport, up northeast, and then finally disbands over portions of western Alabama. The storm is now a tropical storm, and there's been a lot of comparison of Frederick and this storm, and all I can say is for Dauphin Island residents, it was just as bad, but for Mobile, light damage reported.
Elena's wrath was still being felt late this morning near Dauphin Island. The beach road to the island was covered with debris, making it nearly impassable. This was just the beginning. Once on the island, it was clear this was the hardest hit area in Alabama. Dauphin Island was devastated by Elena. She tossed around the boats at the marina like toys. This trailer park was completely smashed. She turned beach homes upside down and inside out, scattering roofs and furniture everywhere. Although Elena wreaked about $30 million worth of havoc, she didn't claim any lives. And Petronas was one of a handful of islanders who rode out the hurricane. What did it sound like down here?
Well, now, in Frederick, it was a roar. You know, the wind was so much stronger. But last night we could hear the wind, but we couldn't, we didn't hear any trees fall or anything. And our glass doors were shaking a little bit this morning.
Yeah. Hurricane Frederick may have been a stronger storm in 1979, but Hurricane Elena matched Frederick's winds of destruction. For Dauphin Island, it is like a recurring nightmare. How did the island fare this time compared to Frederick?
I think it's going to be about the same. About the only difference is we still have a bridge.
Tonight, the island is closed to landowners and sightseers. There is no water or power. Roads are unsafe. It may take years to recover from Elena, the hurricane that teased Dauphin Island for 3 days, then destroyed it in one night. Carolyn Martin for NBC News on Dauphin Island, Alabama.
At this hour, electrical power is still out, but officials hope by morning to have utilities restored. In Gulf Shores, damage from Hurricane Elena is relatively minor. The city's beachfront pavilion took quite a beating, as did most beach houses along the Western Boulevard. Beachfront roads are passable, but debris and sand along the way testify that Elena was here. Across the bay in Mobile County, Dauphin Island sustained extensive damage. There is no estimate as to when residents will be allowed to return home or when power will be restored. All things considered, Alabama Gulf Coast residents are considering themselves very lucky tonight, and by no means has Hurricane Elena left the impact of Hurricane Frederick 6 years ago. In Gulf Shores, Carrie Gordon, WSFA TV News.
The top winds have been confirmed at 122 miles per hour when the storm moved over Dauphin Island, and the same figure over Gulfport. With the heaviest rain reported at Apalachicola, 12.5 inches of rain, damage now estimated at over $1 billion. And some final words on Elena. The evacuation plans and the warning system worked. Over 1 million people were evacuated in less than 3 days, and although damage from Elena was extensive, no one was killed. Injuries were minimal. The system works, and the credit goes to all the many agencies that participated, including the National Hurricane Center. They did a great job.
On the Gulf Coast, it was a day to clean up and start calculating the loss. homeowners cleared away tree limbs and debris. Merchants in downtown Gulfport, Mississippi are picking up after a dozen tornadoes touched down.
Mannequins with the suits on and everything. Just went blowing off down the street. Brand new Hart Shafter marked suits and everything. I thought, all right. Well.
The biggest problem is downed power lines. 80% of the customers in coastal Mississippi are without electricity. It will take up to a week to restore power.
This hurricane, we had the whole Gulf Coast with damaged electrical facilities.
Without electricity, ice became a valuable commodity. There were long lines today at the few gasoline stations pumping.
If we don't get some gas now, we might not get none for a couple of days.
Here in Mississippi, 500 National Guardsmen are keeping order with the help of 200 state troopers. Damaged stores are being patrolled to prevent looting. Alabama's Dauphin Island was hard hit. Hurricane Elena buffeted the resort for 2 hours with sustained winds in excess of 100 miles an hour.
It's amazing, huh? Never thought I'd ever see anything like this.
At least 50 homes were seriously damaged.
You wonder where,
refrigerators.
You know, a 300-pound refrigerator goes, you know, where is it at?
Elena was not a killer hurricane, not a Betsy, a Frederick, or a Camille, but it has disrupted thousands of lives along the Gulf Coast. Again tonight, there's a curfew in effect from 8 p.m. to dawn. Dennis Murphy, NBC News, Biloxi.
This morning, David Hester didn't feel there was a sunbeam left in the country. Hurricane Elena first touched land in his front yard. The day before, David Hester had put his home up for sale. Today, he replaced the sign that had blown away. He wanted the money to build another house next door. His wife's family has lived on this Gulf Coast for 150 years. Her grandfather once saved his family by watching the birds. When they fly inland, a hurricane is not far behind.
My grandfather put all the children on the kitchen table, and he stood in the water to keep the logs and debris from knocking the table over so the children would not drown.
During this week's hurricane, Judy took her boys to Baton Rouge, but David stayed on the coast. He went fishing hours before the storm to catch this morning's breakfast. While David Hester was in the Air Force, he lived through an earthquake, a tornado, and a monsoon. That gives a man perspective.
Where are you going to run to? I mean, where would you go that it's any better? We just like it here.
So the Hesters will stay. Their hill has been buffeted quite a bit this year.
This house next door burned last winter. And this summer, the Hesters were told that their insurance company would no longer renew policies on beachfront homes. The good news? The Hesters policy doesn't expire till the end of this month.
The Hesters tried to call their insurance agent today. His office had been blown away. Bob Dotson, NBC News, Goshen, Mississippi.
National satellite tonight shows you pretty much what's left of Elena there, lower Mississippi Valley area. Also a cold front sweeping down through the Central Plains just north of the Texas Panhandle, causing quite a few thunderstorms in that area. Afternoon satellite photo showed the remnants of Elena. We're going to continue talking about that because that is the nearest action near the southeast, and it did affect Alabama in a way today. Some of the western counties, Clark, Monroe, got some fairly hefty thunder showers as a result of the low pressure area, counterclockwise motion right through the western corners of Alabama, and a lot of rain back through Arkansas and northern Louisiana. We'll bring you up to date our latest southeastern satellite photo. Still showing remnants of Elena tonight, but the action has shifted just a bit from the western counties up into the extreme northwestern corner of the state, and that's about the only effect we are getting out of Elena at this point.
I'm pregnant.
The fight of her life.
I'm going to keep this baby.
Based on a true story, Love Child, Monday.
The Golden Girls has been called the funniest comedy of the new season. Betty White, B. Arthur, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty are the Golden Girls, Saturdays this fall.